Hi guys, in this video we will be covering how to make a luxury mansion in Blender 2.8. So this will be an in-depth tutorial where we'll cover everything from 3D modeling to texturing, shading, and even rendering using the real-time Eevee rendering engine. By the end of this tutorial, you should expect to create something that looks like this. Before I begin, just wanted to quickly let you know about Skillshare. It's an online learning community with over 25,000 classes covering dozens of creative and entrepreneurial skills. Skillshare classes tend to be bite-sized and quicker to finish, allowing you to skill up really fast in whatever it is you want to skill up in. Premium membership gives you unlimited access, so you can join as many classes as you wish that are just right for you. Whether you want to fuel your curiosity, creativity, or even career, Skillshare is the perfect place to keep you learning and thriving. One class I found super valuable is the simple character animation Create a Walk Cycle with Duik class. Although it doesn't use Blender, you can learn the process of creating awesome looking walk cycle animations with this class. Skillshare is also super affordable with an annual subscription going at less than $10 a month. Since Skillshare is sponsoring this video, you can sign up with the link in the description and get a 2-month free trial. So go ahead, check out Skillshare and sign up for the free offer using the link in the description. Back to the video. So first things first, it's important that you get sort of an idea of the type of mansion you want to build in Blender. So I spent a bit of time on the internet and I looked up a few mansion pictures and I came across this one that I particularly liked. So this is the one that I want to try to model. And I just want to give away a little disclaimer. I'm not really an architectural expert or, architectural designer of any kind. So I'm not going to really be making this 100% to scale with all these intricate details. I choose to make this with complete creative freedom. So that way I get to avoid any kind of copyright lawsuits or anything like that, because I'm just going to make it up a little bit. And also you probably have an idea of what I've been searching on the internet. Anyways, back to the point. The first thing that I usually do once I find a reference image that I like is I go ahead and I download the house plans. So just go right click and save image as and save it somewhere onto your computer. So I choose mostly to save the main floor plan. I didn't really save the second floor, but I think this is a good idea of gauging the overall shape of this house. So it's mostly like a rectangle with two little squares sticking out. And maybe a little bit sticking out over here and a little bit sticking out over here as well. So I guess I can sort of make use of that type of shape in my initial blockout. Okay, so once I have that reference image, I can go into Blender and I can load in those reference images. So what I'll do is I'll go to the modeling tab of Blender 2.8 and I might just drag out a new window. So left click and drag a new window over here. And change this window type to be an image editor. Then just open up the image in your drive of the reference image that you downloaded from the internet. And also I want to load in the house plan. So go to the top view for this one. We're going to go Shift A. So let me just tab out of edit mode for this one. Let's go Shift A, add image as background. Then I just select the reference image that I found off the internet. So I'll probably select this one over here. So although I'm going with complete creative freedom, it's important that I get the scale and proportion right in my Blender model. Because if I don't get the scale and proportion right, it immediately kills the believability and realism of my render. And I don't want that. So even though I did disclaim I'm not an architectural expert, I still want to mimic the realistic scale and proportion of my house or my mansion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all go to this tab over here. It's called the context tab in the properties window. Let's expand out the units tab. And I want to change this from metric to imperial. Why am I doing this? It's because in my diagram over here, it's using the inches and feet. So forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but I think this means 20 feet. So what I want to do is I want to measure out 20 feet by selecting the ruler over here. And I think I did something here before. Oops, sorry. So let me just delete that. Let's just draw out a new ruler. So that's two inches, but I think there's one thing here means inches, and I have 2 here, so that's probably means 2 feet. So I'm just going to drag it out to about 20. So in this case, the length of my garage is 20 feet by 22 feet. So this part over here needs to be as long as this one over here, which is about 2 of these boxes. So we need to scale our reference image to match it up so that the garage length over here is exactly the same as this. So I want to go ahead and select the reference image over here. So let's select that, and then I'm going to go ahead, just to see things clearer, I'm going to hit use alpha so we can see our grid. Maybe I might just tone down the transparency quite a bit. Let's just scale it up. So the garage is over here. It needs to be a lot bigger than that. So I'm just going to try and match it up to the best of my ability. So this line needs to be even bigger. Wow, this is a really big mansion. Okay, so look at that. Okay, so we have the length over here 20 inches, and I assume over here, so in other words 2 boxes. If I move it just in line with this, if I look over here, it should be 22 inches as well. So 1 box, 2 box, and a little bit over here. I think that's about right. So I'll assume over here that the rest of the scale is correct. I'm sorry if I keep mixing it up in inches and feet. I'm not from the part of the world that uses that system. I'm from the part of the world that uses meters and centimeters. So this is all a bit like gibberish to me, but I sort of get the idea. Alright, so I don't have to go in and check one by one each of these dimensions. If one of them is correct, the rest of them should be correct. So that's my job done in terms of setting up the reference image. Let's go ahead and delete everything. We don't need it. We don't need a lamp. We don't need a camera. We don't need a cube. So let's start fresh. Let's change the name of this empty. Call it a reference image from top view or something, just to make it easier. You can call it whatever you like. I want to go ahead and save my work. Okay, so let's actually start to model the house. Now I want to be doing this in parts. So I'm going to be modeling this part over here as one section. I'm going to be modeling this as a separate section, same as this. And I'm not going to be modeling any of the back because I'm not really going to be showing that in the render, and I'm not going to really be spending a lot of time creating all these details. You can if you want to, but I think for my part I'm going to make a really, really simple mansion than this. This one is probably a little bit too intricate. Okay, another thing that we're going to be using is we're going to be using the Archipack add-on that is available in Blender 2.8. It is not enabled by default, so you actually have to go in and enable it because it's actually not created by the Blender Foundation team themselves. It's actually created by talented Blender developers. So if I go ahead and search for Archipack, you'll find that it comes bundled in Blender 2.8. I have it enabled by default. Yours may not, so you may have to go in and tick that. Now, once you tick this one, it's important that you go ahead and also press this one as well, render preset thumbs. If you don't click this button, you can't really leverage the full potential of the Archipack add-on. In other words, you can't really add windows or doors or floors or roofs or anything like that. So it only just becomes a tool just for creating walls, pretty much. So it's important that you click this one so that it will actually render out a little thumbnail image when you allowing you to select different styles of doors or different styles of windows and things like that. So by the way, sorry, once you've actually rendered the preset thumbs and you've also ticked this, just close the window. And now you have Archipack add-on enabled in Blender. So let's now start to create the wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, Mesh. Well, first of all, you need to position the 3D cursor right on the center origin. If it isn't already, just go Shift S, cursor to world origin, which it is, which is great. Then you go Shift A, Mesh, Archipack, and then Wall. Okay. I believe the average height of a house is about 3 meters or 8.85 feet. But because this is a mansion, I assume the height of the ceiling tends to be even higher. So I'm just going to bump that up to maybe like 14. because that's what makes a mansion look epic. And I'll probably stick the wall starting somewhere over here and hit R90 minus from the top view. And let's just position it so that it matches the reference image a little better, like so. Don't worry about the part where it's cutting out over here where the windows will be. We'll worry about that later. We just want to outline where the walls will generally go. Okay, so once you have something like this, you'll be wondering what these widgets here mean. So these little widgets enable you to actually manipulate your wall and create custom kinds of shapes to suit almost any type of style of wall. So in this case, I'm just going to basically draw out the wall outline based on this reference image, but I'm not going to be following the reference image 100%. Okay, so first thing I need to do is I need to extend out this wall all the way till here. So in order to do that, we can see this little arrow over here, this white little arrow. Just click and drag it. And that's it. So we have the first slab pretty much done. To create the second part of the wall, we need to click this little icon over here, this little arrow icon, or I think you can hit, I believe you can hit T on your keyboard. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong one. N on your keyboard to bring up this little panel. And then in the Archipack tab, we're going to go ahead and add in one more part, like so. So that'll add in another part of our wall. So we'll do the same thing. We'll click this little arrow and drag it all the way so that it matches the reference, like so. And then we need to add another wall over here. So what will we do? Well, we'll go ahead and add in another part. But this time, it's going in this direction. We don't want to go in this direction, we want to go in this direction. So in order to change that, we need to change the degrees over here. So I can click and drag this if I want and do it that way, or I can choose to be a lot more accurate and just type it in directly. So I'll just pretty much click that and go -90. So that's pretty accurate. Maybe this wall is sticking out a little bit, so to be more accurate, I might move this one in a little bit. So you can see straight away how customizable this wall feature can be. Now just drag out this one all the way to the end, and I pretty much go ahead and do the same thing throughout the rest of the house. So go ahead and add in one more part, change this, click on that one, change it to -90, pull this one upwards, up to about there, but actually I might choose to do it here. Let's just move this one a little bit in. Let's add in another part. Let's move this one all the way here. So I'm breaking the rules a little bit here, partly because of time constraints. Let's add one more part. Let's change the angle over here to -90 again. Let's move it up over here. I think I'm making it a little too long, so I might just move it in again. Note that you can also go into these ones and also change it here as well. So if I click and drag this start angle, you can also do the same thing. So in this case, I want to just keep it at -90, but I just find it easier to modify things from the widget itself. Oops, I accidentally cancelled out of that. So if you want to go back and see the widget again, just go ahead and click manipulate, and that'll put you back into that mode again. So let's click and drag. So the great thing about Archipack add-on is it is non-destructive. You can, you can modify it as much as you like and later on change it. Let's add in another part. And I might actually want to add some kind of feature like this, where there's like a curvature thing going on. So for this one, if I want to do that, all I need to do is just add in one more part again like this, and then just angle it in like that. Then add in one more part, and then angle it out like this. And then we have something that looks like that. Let's add in one more part. Just move it all the way down. Let me just fix up the angles to be a lot more accurate. So I might say -45. and this one is minus 45. So it's a lot more straight, and let's move this up. One more part. Oops, cut that arrow. Negative 90. Let's move it out. And to finish this off, just tick this little checkbox over here, close, and that'll finish up the model for you. So in this case, I need to move this back until it becomes a straight line. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add in the little garage over here. Oh, this is, I know in the reference it looks like it's another, like a guest house or something like that. Then what's this one? Apartment garage. Sorry, initially I thought this was the guest house and this was the apartment garage based on the reference, but I guess I'm wrong. But anyway, I want to break the rules and I want to make this one a guest house as well. So I want to go ahead and hit Shift A, Archipack, and I'm just going to add in another wall, and I'm just going to just draw it in over here. So same thing with this one, I'll make it 14 feet long. And I'll just, this one will be quite simple, I'll just draw out a little square. So add a part. 46.0251, 46.0251. Okay, and finally we'll just hit close just to finish it all up. Okay, so that's looking good. Alright, so for this ground floor, I'm going to go ahead and add in a floor and just a slight covering on the top for the ceiling. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Create tab. So to add a floor, go ahead and select your wall, hit to wall, and choose your floor type, and it will automatically fill out your ground floor with an actual floor. Same with this one, let's go add a wall. Add a floor to the wall, and it'll just be a simple tile floor, I guess. Nothing too fancy. And also I want to add a top part as well. So I want to add a ceiling to this wall, just to cover it up. Same with this one, just adding a ceiling. And I think that's good enough. Why is this ceiling hovering a little bit over? It's a bit strange, but anyways, I'll just plop it down a little. Actually, plop it down quite a bit. So it's like that. Okay, so once I have that, I'll just box select all these and just select those three over here. And all I want to do is I'm just going to duplicate it by hitting Shift D and then moving it up, so that I have something like this. And all I want to do is I want to gently place it onto the second floor. I might just go ahead and hit snap transform and I'll snap to the nearest face. So by doing this, it snaps the object to the nearest object. Choose face. So then this will pretty much exactly touch the top floor. Okay, so I think that's looking good. Cool, once that's done, the next thing to do is to start adding windows. Actually, just to tighten it up a little bit more, I might actually move, oh sorry, not this one. This is the slab, so I might, oops, GZ and move it. I'll turn this off for a second. GZ, move it down. Select this one on the floor. And then turn this on again. Oops. Like that, so that they intersect. So that they intersect pretty much exactly. Okay. That's good enough. We can later on go ahead and fix this up and join them together, but I'll just leave it like this for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to add in the windows. So for the windows, I want to use this reference image. I want to create two different window styles, one like this one and one with an arch. So to add a window, all you need to do is, instead of hitting window like this one, go ahead and use the pencil tool to add the window. What this will do is it will allow you to pretty much draw windows right onto your wall, so that you don't have to spend time actually getting a window, trying to fit it somewhere over here, and then using Boolean tools to try and cut a hole into your wall and fit the windows. It does pretty much everything for you. So that's one of the really, really awesome features of Archipack, and why I tend to use it pretty much all the time to do architectural models. So pretty much just go ahead and hit the pencil tool and select a window style that you like. I suggest starting off with a flat 2 kind of a window like this one, and then go ahead and just find where you want to start to add in your first window. So I might start over here, and I want to be copying something like this one. So straight away it will ask you to add more windows. We don't want to do it now. We're going to go ahead and just hit escape to get out of that mode. Then we're going to go ahead and just select this window over here, and we're going to make some adjustments to the window. So the first thing I want to adjust is, if I go to the Archipack tab, I need to adjust the height. I don't want it to be so high off the ground like this. I only want a little bit of a distance off the ground. So for that one, I want to change the altitude and just pick something that looks around about right. For the height, it's going to be almost as high as the entire floor. So for that one, just increase the height pretty much almost all the way. So maybe something like that would be great. Then we also want to have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe about 5 rows in the panels over here. So to add in panels, just go ahead and increase the number of rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can't see the other panels, so we need to change the height of each panel. Maybe I might put this one as 2 feet, and for each of them. Yeah, something like that. And I think that's looking okay. So as you can see, the windows is automatically cut into our wall. So all the Boolean operations and all the advanced stuff is already done for us. So we just need to just pretty much go in and add in windows and other elements like doors and things like that right onto our house. And that saves us a lot of time. We don't have to worry about cutting anything into our wall or remodeling or any of that kind of stuff. It's all done for us. I can make more modifications to this window if I wanted to. I mean, if you want, you can play around with these kind of stuff, like how wide you want the glass to be, the handle, all this kind of stuff. But I'm just going to leave it default for now. And what I want to do is, this is important. It's important to save a preset of this type of window. So just go ahead and hit plus, and just name the preset like mansion window. We'll call it square. You can call whatever you like as long as you remember. So we'll call it the mansion window square. So now we just go around and keep adding more of these mansion windows. So go to create, hit this pencil tool for the window, and choose this new one, mansion window square. And then you just pretty much just go in and just plop it onto your model. The spacing there is not good, so maybe I might come back later and fix that. Do the same thing over here. Anywhere else? Oh, on the side maybe. And maybe one over here as well. Okay, and for that part, I'll pretty much call it good. Okay, so I'm going to create a new window type now. What I will do is I'll go ahead and just draw in a window. We'll start with the mansion window. Actually, I don't want that. I want to use an elliptical. And then we'll just draw a window over here. And we have our first elliptical window. Let's just cancel out of this one for a second. I think that's looking too wide. So select the window, just go to Archipack and change out the width to make it look a bit more rectangular. Change the altitude of this one as well. So let's match this one up to be exactly like this one. 1.9 altitude and 10 height. So select that one, 1.9, height of 10. Yeah, something like that. We want to move this bit to go all the way up. And also want more rows as well. But each row has to be quite small. 1, 1, 1. And add in maybe one more row. And then the height of it, just move it up. I'll just go to 2, 2, 2, 2. But here we want just one panel. So we don't want to have two panels here, we want one panel right at the top. I think it could be wider, so let's just copy the width of this one as well. What's the width of this one? 3.9. Let's do the same with this one, 3.9. Okay, so let's go ahead and save our work. And also let's save a preset of this one. So hit plus, and we'll call it Mansion Window Circle. Hit OK. Let's save our work. And now let's go around the mansion and add in these little circular windows. So I'm going to create, draw in a mansion window circle. And let's just draw them in. Okay, there's 6 more windows that I need to add in this area as well. But what I want to do is, if you look closely, these are just like balconies. So what I want to do is I want to go into edit mode and just extrude out these faces to create these kinds of balconies. So I'm just going to go into the model really quick, like this, right behind, and select only the faces where I want to have the balconies. So go to face select mode, select this face and this face. If you can't see that clearly, I'm just going to go ahead and hit slash on my numpad. So those are the two faces that I'm selecting. Then what I want to do is I'm going to insert those faces like so. So click and drag. Click and drag them in. Only make it a very faint. Don't make it too noticeable. And finally, we're going to hit the extrude tool, and then we're going to push it inwards. Okay, it's snapping. I don't want it to snap, so let's just turn off this snapping tool over here, and let's move back to the move tool and control how far back we want our balcony to be. So this is really up to you, how big you want your balcony to be. I'm not going to make mine that big. Maybe something around there would be good. So we'll go out of slash mode, and we'll have something like that. And now let's draw in some of those elliptical windows. So add window. I want to add in a main window circle, and we'll bunch these up closer together. Okay, so our mansion is really starting to take some good shape now. So let's go ahead and finish off by adding a door and a little garage. So for the door, I'm just going to be adding a dual door. And just draw it directly onto this model over here. Just add it somewhere over here. And that's good enough. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape to get out of the draw mode. And what I want to do is I'm just going to, actually I'll leave it like this for now. It automatically added the door right at the base, but we're going to have stairs over here. So for now I'll just leave it like this. And we'll just quickly add in a garage. So for the garage, Let's again hit door, and we will choose garage. And then we'll just add in maybe like one garage here and another one here. Escape. Let's go ahead and manipulate, and what I'll do is I'll make this one longer. So 46.5. Let's maybe make it 50 or 60. Same with this side. Click, that's 60. That'll just increase the length, and then I will move it out. Like so. And then of course these ones need to move as well. So grab Y. There seems to be a little bit of duplication going on, but grab Y. There seems to be a double up model going on there, which doesn't look right. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that, and delete this one as well. Grab Y and let's move it out a little bit over here, and finally we'll just add in the Archipack. Create a ceiling. Okay, cool. Okay, so to finally finish off the basic blocking of the mansion, we're going to go ahead and add in a roof. So for the roof, it's going to be quite simple as well. So just go ahead and hit roof, and I'll just choose the first one, the brass roof. It's just the basic roof that you see over here, and I'm just going to pretty much just position it over here. Not scale it, but I'll increase the parts if I can find it in the Archipack settings. Where do I look? Oh, sorry, parts. Expand that out. Let's increase the number of parts. Let's choose triangular end for each of these parts, so that it looks like the reference image. Something like that. And what I'll do is scale it up and make it fit. Okay, and then I want to duplicate this one, Alt D, and then rotate it R90 from the top view. I'll scale it down, and then position this down for the garage. Then grab Y, like so, so that it fits nicely on top. And we'll do the same thing. For this one, I want to go ahead and hit Shift D. So the difference between Alt D and Shift D is Alt D will create an instance. So if you change one thing here, it will change one thing here as well. But Shift D creates a complete duplicate, like its own unique instance. So I can change this as much as I want and it will not affect the other. So for this one, I don't need to have two parts. We'll just remove one of them. Okay. And we have something like that. And I'll just fit this one, scale it down a little. Scale it up, sorry. Also scale it down, sorry. And then go Alt D, X, and move it onto this side as well, so that it fits nicely. Okay, and maybe for this one, I'll just go here and hit Alt D just to fill up this little area over here. Now I'm going to do, these ones are going to be a little bit of a fakery done because they're sort of away from the camera. I don't tend to worry too much. Yeah, I'll just leave that and ignore that part for now. I'll just leave it something like that. So as we can see, our mansion is now starting to take shape. starting to look like an actual mansion now, which is great. I think what I'll now do is I'll just quickly go ahead and finish it off by adding a balcony. So the balcony part, again, I'm going to be using the Archipack add-on. So let's just tab out of edit mode. Just going to create, and I'm going to be adding a fence, just middle. Yeah, I think this one might look better actually. So let's go ahead and turn up the parts 3, and we might just decrease the scale, something like that. I can Alt D to create an instance duplicate rather than a unique duplicate. At this stage, I think the first pass of our mansion is done. So we didn't really do any real modeling actually. We've just plainly used the Archipack add-on to create this mansion, which is a pretty good effort. I mean, that looks already good from a first pass. But I think more work can be done. So I think the next step now is to actually add in these little poles over here, add in a little design for the doorway and the stairs, and we also need to, I think after that it's pretty much ready to go to set up rendering and texturing and shading and all that other fun stuff. Sorry, I might do one more thing. I might just add in 2 small windows at the top. So let's go ahead and select that one, create a window. We'll just create a flat window, I guess. Like so. The size is okay, I think. And this one as well. So let's escape out of that one. Let's select these 2 and move GZ and move it up to the top. If you want, we can add in 1 or 2 rows to it. And then we'll save our work. And I think that's good enough to go. For this part, I decided to show it in time-lapse because this is just the mundane modeling parts. For the poles, I mainly just used cylinders and then duplicated it a few times. I then repositioned the windows so that they line up to the reference a bit better. For the arch of the doorway, I used a cylinder, and then I positioned the 3D cursor right in the middle of the 2 doors, and then I used the spin tool in the modeling toolset to click and drag and create that arch, and then extrude it downwards. I added a few loops and then added the subdivision surface modifier to make it look even smoother. Then I duplicated it a few times and then moved it back a bit. I then selected one of the edge loops of the back ones and then extruded it back on the Y axis so that it matches the reference. I also recalculated the normals. Now I went ahead and created the stairs for the entrance, and I also gave it a bit of thickness on the arch. I added 3 loop cuts on the stairs and then extruded each bit out to create each step. I then made the steps wider. I then checked the reference and I found that the archway is a lot bigger, so then I went ahead and scaled that up. I also decided that I wanted to copy the reference image a bit more, and I also added in an extra building. And then I threw in a few random windows and a doorway. This is just so that I mainly did this just to make the image. Now I'm going ahead and adding the grass. So for this one I used a circle, and then I used the grid fill tool right in the middle. Then I added a bunch of planes in areas where the grass will be. I also added one massive plane and moved it just slightly down on the Z-axis to be the pathway. I then subdivided the planes a bunch of times, and then I positioned the vertices so that it matches the reference. This will be effective if you end up using the particle system. It'll be an effective way of doing this as well, because the grass will not leak and go out onto the pathway. It's a very good way of controlling where the grass grows. I then added a bunch of random cubes just for the pathway and also a little road. Then I added a camera and just positioned it so that it'll look good when rendered. Alright, so let's now start working on the materials and texturing of our mansion. For this one, I'm going to work in the shading workspace in Blender 2.8. And we have a simple scene that looks like this. Currently, everything is just white because, well, we don't have any material set up. And maybe let's start off with the windows. So let's go ahead and select a window and go to the material tab of the properties window. Straight away, you'll see that there's a bunch of materials for the window. So if I just quickly tab into edit mode, we can find the part that's actually the glass. So if I go ahead and select that material and hit select, that's just showing the part that's inside. If I select window outside, that shows the part that's outside. So let's go ahead and hit use nodes for window glass. Remove the principal shader, and I'm going to create Shift A, shader, glass shader, and connect that to the surface. And for this one, I'm going to make a slightly rough 0.03 or 0.05 should be okay. Okay, for window outside, go ahead and hit use nodes, and for this one, we'll just give it a, I don't know, any color that you like for a window pane, I guess. So I might go for a wooden kind of color, so it'll be a very dark brown, something like that. Okay, it didn't apply to these windows over here, so I might just go ahead and select this node and hit Control C to copy it. Tab out of edit mode, select this one, and I think it's window inside that I have to do the same thing. So go ahead and hit use nodes, remove that principal BSDF, hit Control V, and connect that up over here. And now every single window in our house now has a material. So for the door, we can go ahead and use a texture, a wooden texture for the door, but I'm not going to really show close-ups of the door, so I think I want to skip on that. So go ahead and hit use nodes and simply just put in a nice dark brown kind of a color. Same with this one, use nodes. For the handle, maybe just use nodes and it's like a gray color. Should be okay. Let's make it a little bit metallic and less rough. I think that should be good enough. Okay, the garage also has the door material applied, which is okay. If you want to change it, you can always, if you want to have the garage and the door as separate materials, just go ahead and not select the door, but go ahead and select the garage. Go onto the material that you want to change and just hit this symbol up here, 10. What this means right now is it's saying that there are 10 objects in our scene that use the same material. So if you want to duplicate this material and have its own material, you just click that, like that. So it'll create its own material, and then you can change to any color you like. And it should not affect any other material in the house. So I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. For the rails, I don't know which one affects which. Fenced metal and fence wood. Okay, so for this one, let's go ahead and use nodes. I want to make it a sort of dark texture and less roughness. And a bit metallic as well. Okay, Control C this node. Go to fence wood, use nodes, remove this one, Control V, and plug that into the surface, and we have the rails now done as well. For the roof, generally, like the way that Archipack sets up the materials for the roof is if I just quickly tab into edit mode, if I go ahead and select the roof tiles, it goes ahead and select a bunch of random ones. So these are all applied to the material roof tiles. Roof tiles 2 is also applied to these ones. Roof tiles 3 is applied to these ones. So if I go ahead and select each of these roof tiles, it makes up the entire roof. So what I want to do is to create some interesting variation to our material, I want to just go ahead and create different color variations of it. So for this one, I'm going to make it like nearly black, a bit of gray. For this one, I'm going to make it maybe a darker gray. This one, I'll make it an even darker gray, approaching black. For this one, I might make it almost black. And this one as well, somewhere around here, so that we have a little bit more of an interesting variation to our roof. I'll also do the same thing for these rest of the ones as well. For the ground, I'm going to give it a sort of like a brick pattern texture. You can find the link to the texture in the description below. So I'm just going to go ahead straight away and use that. So I'm going to copy this directory into here and then hit enter. And then I'm going to use this one, the paving stone texture. So first copy off the base color. Oops, sorry, the base color. Click and drag this over here, plug that into the base color. And straight away we can see that it looks too big. So I want to go into the UV editing tab. And then just select all by hitting A in the UV editor, and then hit S. I think for my particular thing was S80, so scale it up by 80. So if we look at that in, let's see, change this to the viewport shading mode real quick. So it looks something like that. My scene is quite big. For your one, you may have to scale down by selecting everything and hitting S in the UV image editor and seeing how big your brick patterns should be, but I think that was okay for my case. Even then, that's a little too big. I'm using this door as a reference. Something like that. Okay, is a good starting point. Okay, let's go back to the shading tab, and I'm just going to quickly go grab in the other textures. Again, this is following that PBR workflow that we looked at in the medieval tutorial. So go to the roughness, connect the roughness into the roughness. We'll use the normal map and connect this one into a vector bump node. Connect the color into the normal and the normal into the normal. So we'll just add in a bit of that bump and also change this to non-color. Okay, so I think those are the main textures that I should really care about. Everything else is okay. Okay, so that's cool. Next up for the grass, I'm going to go ahead and select all these ones over here and hit Ctrl J to make them one material. Connect up that PBR workflow. So connect the base color to the base color. We don't have a UV map for this one, so hit U, project from view. Actually, select all and hit U, project from view. And then go to the UV editing, select all, scale up. So we have something that looks like that. Okay, and the same thing like we did with the ground. I think I can kind of go through this. I guess I can kind of go through this pretty quickly. Connect the normal map to a vector bump. Connect the color to the normal, normal to the normal, and change this to non-color data. And also use the roughness of the grass and connect that into the roughness. Okay, so that part is all set up. Next up, let's look at the material for the actual building itself. So let's start off with this one. I guess what I can do, save my work. What I can do is I can quickly go ahead and apply all the modifiers. So go over here, apply all the modifiers. Same this one and this one. Okay, and I'll quickly save a version of this one. Okay, with that done, let's now go in and select each of these materials, hit A, and for this material I'm going to go, I just need to find out what's the name of this material. So hit A to deselect everything, go and find the actual material. So it's not wall inside, it's probably wall outside. Okay, so this is the material we need to work on. Go ahead and hit use nodes, and I'm going to use a white stucco material. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm going to call it stucco, and connect the color into the color, and exactly the same thing like we did before. The reason I'm not using a height map for this one is because it's Eevee, so you can't do adaptive subdivision or micro displacements with Eevee yet, or I don't know if it'll ever become a feature, but it's not there, so I can't make use of that. So I'm just gonna have to get away with a normal map. If I really wanted to use a height map, I would have to subdivide this a lot and then actually use a displace modifier. That's pretty much the only way that I know of how to use displacements in Eevee. Okay, so right now we can't really see the materials coming through, so in order to see that I have to actually unwrap it. So tab into edit mode, select everything, and then hit U, project from view, so we can start to see it come through. Let's go into the UV editing tab, select all these ones over here in the UV editor, and scale it to around about how big you want the stucco material to be. Something like that would be good. We'll do the same with this one as well. I actually didn't do that good job here. So I'll just go ahead and select this face, view, project from view. That's a pretty good unwrap. Cool. Yep. So what we can do is, if you want to add an interesting bit of variation, I suggest you duplicate this material by hitting 4, and might make this one a little bit darker. So I might just add in a color mix RGB. And then just make this one just a tad bit darker. Just add an interesting variation to our mansion. And for the bottom one, we'll just make it a little bit lighter. Mix RGB, and this will be a lot wider. I think that's looking good. We'll just leave these materials as default. If we have time, we might come back to it. But I think the texturing of the house is now done. Also, I might skip out on this and this. So now let's set up the lighting. While the house model itself looks good, the render of it is a little bit boring, especially for Eevee. So if I go to the rendered view right now, our render looks very dull, very boring. There's not enough interesting lighting going on. So we need to change out the lighting. So for the lighting in this scene, I'm going to go ahead and use a lighting that I got from, I believe, HDRI Haven. Again, the link's in the description. So go to the, which one tab is this? The World tab in the Properties window. Change this color, select this little circle, change it to Environment Texture, and load up the HDRI image. Okay, so straight away we have better looking lighting. But obviously it doesn't still make our scene look good. It makes it look a little bit horrible. So we can still fix that. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and tweak the HDRI. So change this from object to world. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly, that tree looks too big for our house. So I want to quickly fix that. So let's go to input, texture coordinate, then vector mapping, and then connect the generator to the vector, and then the vector into this vector. Okay, and then what I want to do is I'm going to just rotate it on the z-axis until it looks a little bit realistic. The size of the trees I'm talking about. Somewhere around there looks okay. If you want, you can also drop down the location of the Z. So to make the house look a little taller. Something like that might make it look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so if I rotate around the scene, should be a little bit more realistic. Perfect. Okay, now let's work on the lighting a bit more. So while the HDRI is lighting the scene okay for now, it still doesn't look realistic, and one of the main reasons is because there are no shadows in the scene. Shadows through HDRI lighting is not supported in Blender Eevee, so we need to fake it by creating our own lights. So go ahead and go Shift A, light, we'll add in a sun lamp, and then just position it and sort of copy where the HDRI sun is. So I'm going to go ahead quickly and look for where the HDRI sun is. So let me just quickly go up. So over here, so let's position our lamp to around about, so it's directly up. So it's probably about 12 noon. So we can keep the light maybe 100% down for now. I might angle it slightly, and it's probably a strong yellow sun color. So just add in a tinge of yellow, not too much. Don't go overboard with it. Strength might give it about 10. Okay. For the shadows, quickly go into the shadow settings. Might make a clip a bit further away, and we're getting some weird lighting that is leaking through our building. So to fix that, let's go ahead and enable contact shadows. Let's turn up the distance and also the thickness. And for the cascade, we might just turn this up to its highest, and still that we're getting some light leaks. Don't worry for now, we'll go ahead and fix that later. But for now, we just want to make sure that the lighting looks spot on. If you want the shadows to look more sharper, just like we can see in like these trees over here, that kind of shadows, just have to turn the sun strength up. Might go 20, and that'll make the shadows appear darker. Alright, so the next thing we need to do to make the lighting look more realistic is we need to add in a light probe. So go Shift A, light probe, we're going to add in an irradiance volume. So basically what this does is it will calculate light bounces, just like how it does in cycles. So this is the Eevee way of doing it. Unfortunately in Eevee we have to actually do it ourselves, whereas Cycles does it all for us. We just set up our lights, and when you hit the render button for Cycles then does all the light bouncing stuff, so that you don't even need to know or care about that kind of stuff. But with Eevee, we have to actually do some extra work, okay? So all we need to do is just set up an irradiance volume and just scale it up by hitting SX, SZ to pretty much encompass your entire scene that you want to render. The entire scene that will be viewed from the camera. So once you're happy with that, just go into the camera settings, go under indirect lighting, and then bake indirect lighting. Wait a bit. So right now it's looking okay, but the shadows are looking a little bit weird. So the main reason is because we don't have enough, like, I don't know how to call it, maybe enough samples, irradiance size. Let's just turn up the cube map, sorry, the irradiance size. We don't have enough of these samples in our scene. So we could actually, I found that for best results, try to keep it above 10, but don't go overboard with it because it can slow down your rendering. It can actually slow down the baking. So go ahead and hit bake indirect lighting now. So it will be slower now because there's much more to calculate. Okay, so now we're getting pretty close. Lighting is starting to look more realistic, but it's still, we're getting these weird shadow artifacts. So I think what we need to do is we need to turn up the irradiance volume resolution. So I might just double the resolution from 444 to 888, so we get much more of these little samples. And then we need to, the one I did earlier was for bounce lighting, so this will just calculate how many times it bounces. So now it will be even slower. Okay, so it's done one pass. Now it needs to do another 9 more passes, so it's going to take some time. So I better pause the video until then. Okay, I can't really be bothered waiting. I'm just going to go ahead and kill this one now, so we can just see what it looks like so far. So let's disable these ones, and straight away our lighting looks a lot better. Shadows are looking a lot more crisp, and we don't have any of that light leaking issue that we had before. actually we do have a little bit of light leaking going on here. Okay, and what I'll do, I will also add in another light probe, a reflection cube map, and then just cover in areas where there's windows. So we get more accurate looking reflections. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit save, and then let's do a final bake. One thing I forgot to mention is that the reflection of the glass doesn't look realistic. It's looking most like a mirror. It needs to be a little bit see-through. So in the material settings under window glass, make sure you turn on screen space refraction, and also change this to blend mode, alpha hashed or alpha blend, one of those ones. Okay, so that it becomes see-through, but it's still not see-through. That's because in the render settings you have to go down to screen space reflections, tick that, and trace precision, and we'll probably turn it up to somewhere around there. Okay, I think I need to bake it once more in order to be able to see through, but I think we can still see through a little bit. Yeah, we can still see through a little bit, so that's working. Alright, for the shadows, I'm still not too happy with the shadows, so I might go high bit depth. What I'll also do to make the scene look a bit more realistic is under ambient occlusion, go ahead and tick that and turn the distance to about 10. So that will definitely remove any of the light leaks that we're getting in our scene. 10 to 15 tends to be about realistic. And I think I will do a final baking of the lighting, and I'll get back to you once it's done. Okay, so after the baking is done, this is what our scene looks like. So perfect. So let's now go ahead and give that a quickie render. So to render it, all you need to do is either go render image, or just hit F12 on your keyboard. And we have something that looks like that. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and finish up the scene and add in compositing effects. First thing I might do is maybe I might turn on bloom. You can play around with the threshold to add more or less bloom as you want, but I might just make it just a tad, like so. Depth of field, we could also do that as well. So I might select the camera, go to the camera settings, enable depth of field, and then we might just turn on limits. So viewport display, turn on limits, so you can see the line over here. And then this yellow little square over here on the camera, so if I just focus on that one, that's where the depth of field focus will be. So I'll just move it further until it's about there, then turn the f-stop to about 1 or so, and we'll have something that looks like that. Okay, well actually let's keep it at 2.8, keep it sharp, and then have the focus all the way at the house, so that anything in the foreground will look blurry. Okay, so I think for the most part that looks okay. So I might just go for I might just quickly go for a render. So hit F12, and we have a scene that looks like that. So that at this point it looks okay, but we can make it look even better by using compositing effects. This is where we actually make the render pop. So I go Shift A, output viewer. Sorry. So the compositor really is just used to make our renders pop. Okay, so the first thing we want to add is a lens distortion node. So go to distort, so Shift A, distort, lens distortion, plug it in over here, and plug that into the viewer. Then tick fit, and then for the distort we'll use 0.02, and for dispersion we'll use 0.01. Okay, that's great. Next thing we want to do is if you want to play around with the colors, go ahead and use an RGB curves. Might make it a little bit brighter. Okay, or might add in a color balance. So color balance, and try to create a little bit of a mood for this. So might go something like that. Turn this. Okay, and that's it. This is what our final render looks like. I know it doesn't look as photorealistic as we can get it using the Cycles rendering engine. So that's the Eevee renderer, and this is the Cycles render. So it doesn't look all that totally different. The roof tiles is looking a little bit off, but I think I did make it just for Eevee. But for the most part, it's sort of similar in terms of lighting. The bounce lighting and the shadows are not matching up 100%, but I think obviously I need to do some even more extra work to get that right. And of course the glass shader from Cycles is a lot more superior than the one in Eevee, but that's about the best I can get it. So that's it. That's how you model, texture, shade, and render a luxurious looking mansion in Blender 2.8. So now it's over to you. Try to create your own dream luxury mansion. If you like this video, please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.